My name is Myra Whitmore. I'm 34 years old, a cardiology resident, and a single mother of 3-year-old twins. 2 months ago, I was lying in an emergency room, bleeding internally after a car accident. I was shaking as I dialed my parents because I needed someone, anyone, to watch my children while surgeons prepared to operate. Instead of help, I received a message saying they had concert tickets and that I should stop being a burden and figure it out myself. In that moment, something inside me broke, while something stronger was born. From my hospital bed, I hired an emergency nanny at triple pay. I authorized the payment without hesitation and made the clearest decision of my life. I cut them off completely. The mortgage I had been paying, the insurance, the temporary help that had lasted 8 years, the emergencies, the silent financial lifeline. All of it stopped with one click. 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. Before I tell you who was standing there, think about this. Have you ever been the reliable one in your family, the one everyone leans on but no one shows up for? If you understand that feeling, then you already understand the story I'm about to tell. Growing up, love in our home came with rankings. My older sister Vanessa was the golden child, beautiful, charismatic, the center of every room. When she announced she wanted to pursue fashion, my parents cried with pride. When I said I wanted to become a doctor, my father simply nodded and said that was practical. From that moment, I learned that applause was reserved for her, while approval, quiet and restrained, was all I would receive. I built my life through discipline, long nights, scholarships, and sacrifice. I believed achievement would eventually earn the same warmth she received effortlessly. Yet, when I graduated medical school, my parents arrived late and left early because Vanessa needed emotional support. When she held her first fashion show, the entire family flew across the country to celebrate her success. I told myself it made sense. She needed support. I was strong enough to stand alone. What I didn't realize was that their favoritism was not only emotional, but financial. I had become the invisible foundation beneath their lives. What began as a small request, just this once help with the mortgage, became monthly transfers, then insurance premiums, then emergency repairs, then temporary assistance that quietly stretched across 8 years. When I was pregnant and alone, they couldn't come because Vanessa was overwhelmed. They didn't come for the birth of my twins. They didn't come when I studied for board exams on 2 hours of sleep. Yet the transfers continued because I believed family meant showing up, even when no one showed up for you. Over time, the total climbed beyond $360,000. It was a number I never spoke aloud because I thought love kept score silently. Then came the accident, the screech of metal, the impact, the ambulance lights, the pain tearing through my abdomen, the doctor telling me I had 45 minutes before surgery, 45 minutes to find someone to care for my children. When my parents refused, I stopped begging and solved the problem myself. In that moment, I realized strangers were more dependable than the people who raised me. Surgery lasted 4 hours. I spent 5 days in the hospital. No calls, no visits, no messages, only silence where concern should have been. On the 3rd day, I canceled every automatic payment and blocked their numbers. It didn't feel dramatic, it felt like setting down a weight I had carried for years. 2 weeks later came the knock. When I opened the door, my grandfather stood there. He was a retired federal judge I had not seen in years. He held me with a firmness that felt like truth itself and said he knew everything. He invited me to his 70th birthday gathering and asked me to bring records of every dollar I had sent my parents, not for revenge, but for clarity, for the kind of truth that ends denial. In the days before the gathering, I organized 8 years of transfers, mortgage payments, insurance, repairs, and financial support. It was a ledger of quiet sacrifice. Relatives began contacting me with concern because my parents were telling everyone I was unstable after the accident. They were preparing a narrative before I even arrived. When I entered the birthday celebration, conversations slowed. Vanessa greeted me with a perfect smile and hollow sympathy. Minutes later, she loudly told relatives she was worried about my mental state. My mother dabbed her eyes. My father looked grave. The performance unfolded exactly as expected, while I remained silent, because truth does not need to shout. Then my grandfather stood to speak and asked my father a simple question. Who had been paying their mortgage for 8 years? Silence filled the room. As he read the totals aloud, the numbers landed heavier than accusations. Murmurs spread, faces shifted, the illusion collapsed under the weight of facts. Then he read the message they sent while I was bleeding in an ambulance. Shock rippled through the room as excuses dissolved and composure fractured. When he asked if I wanted to speak, I hadn't planned to, but I stepped forward and said I did not come for revenge. I came for honesty. I said I had spent my life believing I was strong when in truth I had been convenient. Reliable meant exploitable. No matter how much I gave, it would never purchase the love freely given to my sister. I told them I did not hate them, but I would no longer participate in a story where my worth was measured by what I provided rather than who I was. I explained that financial support should be a gift, not an obligation. Real family is reciprocal, built on care rather than convenience. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. If you have ever been told that setting boundaries makes you selfish, understand this. Boundaries are not betrayal. Saying no is not cruelty. It is self-respect. My parents left the party early. In the weeks that followed, relatives reached out to apologize. The narrative shifted. Invitations stopped arriving for my parents. Quiet consequences replaced denial. 3 months later, they sold their house because without my support, they couldn't afford it. They moved into a relative's guest house. My sister's career faltered under the weight of reality. For the first time, they stood on their own. I did not feel triumph. I felt peace. Healing is not revenge. It is truth. It is releasing yourself from roles you were forced to play. It is choosing a future where love is mutual, respect is real, and boundaries are honored. Today, my life is quieter. My twins laugh freely in a home built on stability rather than sacrifice. I still believe in family, but I now understand that family is defined not by obligation, but by care. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop carrying people who were never willing to carry you. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt invisible despite giving everything, remember this: choosing yourself is not selfish, it is necessary.